Hello everyone. Today we will continue to look at the Red Hat System Administrator Certification question bank. Next, let's look at question 15. Question 15 is about a permissions issue. Under normal circumstances, actually we generally, especially like some of the previous questions, up until question 12, we were actually using the administrator. You can see that before question 12, we were all administrators. It wasn't until after question 13 that we started using a regular user. Question 14, and then question 15, requires us to help our regular user add passwordless operations for speed. Here, you need to pay attention to this. Passwordless operations actually first. In the previous question, we actually used it. Where did we use it? It was when we were going to, specifically for our directory creation call. Because for the OBT directory, our regular user actually doesn't have the permission to modify it. As for why it wasn't needed later, it's because the subsequent tasks were executed in the subdirectory of our current user. No matter what command you execute, at least you have basic permissions, so there's no issue there. At the very beginning, it was in what was executing this directory under the opt directory. Our regular users don't have any permissions. So at that time, we used what we used. The purpose of the elevate permissions command is actually to increase permissions, specifically to elevate them. How high they are depends on our specific setting. So what is the requirement for this task? The requirement is to set up password-free operation. There are no other requirements. That's just what it says. To put it more completely, it allows members of the group we created earlier to perform the SUV operation without a password. Here, everyone should pay attention. Hey, who are the group members? Regarding the deep dive, actually, we previously had 2, right? There are 2 members in this group. In this case, under normal circumstances, we can just add this entire group for password-free operations. There's no need to separate it into 2 users, right? Actually, 2 question marks are also fine. If you want to create 2 users, this actually meets the requirements of the task, right? It allows group members to log in and operate without a password. However, it's not rigorous if you only set it for 2 users. Indeed, there are only these 2 users in the group, but this approach isn't thorough. What if there are other users in the group? Therefore, it's best to set the entire group for password-free operations with sudo, rather than just the 2 users we created earlier, where if you do it for 2 users, you would need to write 2 lines of content, right? For the group, we just need to write 1 line of content. Next, let's take a look at adding this sensitive operation. First of all, this is not a service, it's not a service. However, it does have configuration files. Indeed, there are configuration files. So first, everyone needs to... You need to first enter into... Where are we now? Currently, we are a regular user. Please note, this is the interface of a regular user after completing question 14. This cannot be done here, because a regular user does not have the permission to assign permissions. Only administrators can assign permissions because administrators have higher privileges. Regular users do not have the authority to assign permissions. So first, we need to exit and switch to the administrator, and then edit. In this case, there are actually 2. 1. This one is this file. Editing this file. Another way is to use VI directly. So I see you do. Here actually, normally speaking, both methods are fine. Both can be used to update and change the configuration of permissions in our system. But the difference is, first of all, after saving and exiting a normal file for our etc speed URS file, it won't show any indication, meaning there won't be any changes. However, if we use the visu do command, when we exit the file, it will tell us whether our syntax is correct. It has this function. So if there's a syntax error or something written incorrectly, once you save with VisuDo, it will tell you where the error is, and then you can correct it. So here, it's best to use VI speed because it can automatically help you check for errors. It automatically helps you check for errors. Next, let's take a look. Using VS Speed, we directly execute a command. All right, once inside, we can see it's all comments. So let's scroll down to find the actual content. Just look for the user and group. All right, here we have two configurations, right? The one above is the admin user. The admin user. Below is our group. Because for this task, the requirement is to set all members of this group to a specific permission. Directly setting the members is theoretically correct, but it's not precise. So here, when setting the group, we can write it directly below, and we don't need to worry about the one above, as that's for the user. As for writing the group first, what do you need? You need to write one first. For a user, you can write it directly, but for a group, you need to add a % in front. All right, to this position. %. Our group is called. It's called this name, right? Okay. For the rest, you don't actually need to memorize it. Just copy it. Because this part, what is it? It is that. It meets the requirements of the task. Here it means we have the permissions of all users. Can execute all commands. And no password is needed. Here, no password means that a password is not required. If no password is not present, then every time you execute a command, you would need to enter the administrator's password again. In this case, it becomes inconvenient. So generally we can set it to no password, so that it can be used directly without a password. It's similar to what we did in the previous task, which you might still remember. In the previous task, when we were operating, it was like this. We should be able to refer back to the previous task, right? Let me check. Yes, we found it. In the previous task, we executed a total of 4 speed commands, correct? All right, we were constantly creating files and granting permissions, because for these file and permission commands, regular users do not have the rights. Therefore, we had to elevate privileges. Here, first of all, it was about elevating privileges. As for what exactly is being elevated, it depends on your requirements. This task doesn't have specific requirements, so we can just write it as 2. 2 refers to everything. So here we just write it as Then afterwards, let me add this. No. Password. It means no password is needed and it can be executed directly. What about ensuring afterwards? How do we verify it? As long as it saves without errors here, what does it indicate? It indicates that your syntax is correct, right? So first, the syntax is correct, and second, how do we verify if it's functioning properly? Because your group cannot log in, pay attention. Everyone, we assigned permissions to the group, right? But the group itself cannot log in. So what do we need here? We need to switch to this user. Which user do you remember? There are 2 users. You can choose either one. Let me see. Right, we restored a snapshot earlier. That's okay. We'll do it like this here. We'll create the user again, and it's fine here. We'll just create the user again. It's like we're doing the 4th question again, just do the 4th question again. For the 4th question, first, we use group add to create our group, the group required by this question. This question is related to the 4th question, and there's quite a gap between them, right? After completing the user part in the 4th question, in question 15, we use this user again. So everyone should understand the sequence, right? You must understand the relationship between each question, especially those with many points. You must get the core questions right. If you get the core question wrong, it will affect the correctness of many subsequent questions. Of course, some questions indeed have no connection at all, like those. Individual commands. Commands like search and filter indeed have no relation. If you get these wrong, it only affects one question. But for other questions, if you get them wrong, it might affect the scores of other questions before and after. SCI evaluation. So here first, we create this group. Regarding users, we had 2 users at that time, right? There were 2 users. For specifying the group, we designated what was equivalent to an additional group. Then we add our previously mentioned user. At that time, we actually had 2 users belonging to this group, right? Yes, Natasha and Harry, these 2. Alright, here we create it. Actually, just creating 1 user is enough to verify this question, to verify the correctness of question 15. Right? It's okay if you want to do question 4 again, because I've restored the snapshot here. So question 4 is actually gone. Question 4 is gone. So after everyone finishes the first round, it's best to, well, after you roughly understand the situation of each question, well, completely restore the environment, and it's best to take a snapshot. This way, it actually makes your subsequent operations easier. Otherwise, you have to restore a snapshot and reset the environment every time you do it, including executing some commands, which is actually quite troublesome and time-consuming. So what's best is, after you've done it once and everything is clear, well, you reset the environment again. After resetting the environment, check whether those services can connect. Especially, actually, mainly everyone should check the Docker, not Docker, but the containers. Whether the repository is functioning properly, and if it can be used like this, that's fine. There aren't too many other requirements. This is just our. The content of these questions. Here, everyone still needs to check each question, right? You need to check them all. Once we have this user, we will check our question 15, okay? As for question 15, it requires what our group users need, that is our current group, right? Now, Natasha is a user in our group, so we will switch to this user now. Right? The switch isn't completed, is it? After the switch is completed, we will go and edit it. Oh, it's not about editing here, actually. Normally we would go. Let's look at a file, right? Just looking at a file is actually fine. For example, some important files where regular users may not necessarily have permission, we look for the password file, right? In our system, there's a password file, right? The password file, in certain situations, has very limited permissions we can show everyone. By default, this file is 000. Which means only the administrator can operate it. Why? Because the administrator is the owner. As you can see, the administrator is the owner, so the administrator can operate it. Apart from that, all other users have no permission. And they can't even view it. So here, we add su to see it. Let's check the cat plus etc file again. Now you can see it, right? Adding su allows it, because we are doing it without a password. Here, everyone should pay attention. Make sure not to write just 1. If you only write a 2 afterward, what does it mean? It means you've done the su elevation, but it still retains the password, meaning you have to enter your user password every time you use it. This is actually inconvenient, and the task requires us to, right? Allow our group members to execute the sud command without needing a password, just like this operation. So this is a step in the password-free operation for our 15th question. It is related to the 4th question, and you must ensure that the name of the user group in the 4th question is completely correct. If the previous name is wrong, actually, if you follow each question according to the instructions, even if you made a mistake in the 4th question, it doesn't matter, right? For our 15th question, when executing, for example, if you switch with Sue and it doesn't switch, what does that indicate? It indicates that the user was not created or was created incorrectly, right? You can just go back to the 4th question and check it again. We just didn't create it, right? We just went back and recreated it, and then it worked normally. So here, if you accidentally wrote it wrong, it's the same, right? If you wrote it wrong, and then you can't switch with this command, what does that indicate? It indicates that there is a problem with your user, right? Or if your user switched over but when you execute it, it doesn't work. It requires a password. In this case, what could it be? It could be that there's a problem in another file of yours. Or it could be that there's an issue with your group because what we set in the file are some settings, which are actually permissions for a group. If there's a problem with your group settings, it will affect your user. This is the relationship in our topic. So here, no matter what the topic is, it's the same. No matter what the topic is, it's the same. You must make them into what? Make them into this. At least check 3 times. The first time is when you are doing the first question, the second question, the third question, right? You do one question, answer it briefly, answer one question briefly. And then, the second check is when you encounter questions that are related to each other, you can use some commands to verify if the previous questions are correct. Of course, this can only be used to verify previous questions with later ones. You can't do it the other way around. After verifying, you then use what? Then use. For example, this is the second round, right? It's like verifying the previous questions with the later ones. After completing the entire second round, for instance, now we have questions 1 to 15. Once you're done, right? After finishing question 15, we go back and check each question starting from the first one. Of course, after completing question 15, you can restart the entire virtual machine. Just finish one. Quickly, or after completing all the questions in a virtual machine, you can restart it. You can restart this virtual machine. By restarting the virtual machine, you can check the result of each question. You can use commands to check. Actually, you can check each question, right? Let's take an example. Alright, starting from the first question. You can view IP information using the IPA command. You can check the host name using the hostname command. That's the first question. For the second question, you check by installing software, right? For the third question, you check if the service can be accessed normally, which means accessing the service on port 82. You don't need to check if it started. Just access it yourself. If you can access it, it means it's up. So you don't need to worry about whether it started or not. For the fourth question, we create users and groups. For this, we can check the password file in the etc directory to see user information, and the group file in etc to view group information. All are possible. For the fifth question, you can only check the information of the Henry user through crown tap L. For the sixth one, use the LL command to check this directory and specify the permissions for this directory. As for the first question, for the seventh question, you can just check if the service is running normally. As long as the Hanyang service is running at least, because the verification time is quite long. We can't afford to wait. You just need to check if the configuration is normal and the service is running properly. For the eighth question, you need to check if the directory is mounted correctly, right? Has it been mounted? As long as you log in as a user and the mount is successful, then there's no problem. For the ninth question, you can check this by looking at the ET in the password file. For the 10th question, check if there is any information about those files in this file. So is there any information about these files in this directory? For the 11th question, just take a look at in this file. Is there any content that you have filtered out? Does the filtered content meet the requirements, right? For the 12th question, just check the format of the package. For the 13th question, yes, check if the name of the image is correct. For the 14th question, after restarting, you should be able to access and see that the container is starting up. That's all. For the 15th question, after switching users, right? Execute a command. Execute a command that only an administrator can execute, right? If it works without needing a password, then it's fine. This is the content for node 1. After checking everything, right? Then you can start working on node 2 or server B. Okay, in the next class, we will officially start explaining the content of server B. So, we will conclude server A here. If you need the complete question bank, you can leave a comment below to purchase the most stable question bank at the lowest price. That's it for today, everyone. Goodbye.